Welcome back to yet another weekly sports update with yours truly, Derek Smith, on the Derek Smith Spiel. This week, July 7th through 13th, we're going to start in the NFL. As always, unfortunately, we're going to start with some firework mishaps that happened on July 4th. Najee Harris injured his eye during a fireworks accident on the 4th of July. The eye injury was said to only be superficial, and he is expected to be ready for the NFL season. Harris was not the only victim in the fireworks incident. Another man was hospitalized and lost some fingers. He's going to be looking like Jason Pierre-Paul, and Harris is only going to be seeing it with one eye. At least temporarily, like I said, he should be back for the NFL season. The Chargers are relying on Harris to boost their run game and rebuild a run offense that has, no pun intended, run stale in LA. The Chargers have not had a 1,000-yard rusher since Melvin Gordon in 2017. But other than that, that's the only real news, I guess. But the top 10s, executive coaches and scouts have ranked the top 10 at each position in the league. So let's take a look at that. There will be more of this next week, as this week there were only probably about half the positions available. They come out with one a day. Starting off with the running backs, at number 10, Alvin Kamara. Number 9, Joe Mixon. Number 8, James Cook. And the Buffalo fans really have an impact on Buffalo players. And they're just great fans. They're always voting and letting their players' success be known. James Cook, he really seemed like an unsung hero in the Bills last year. But when you look at it, Cook had 16 touchdowns last season, rushing touchdowns that is tied for first, and 3.1 yards per rush before contact. That is the fifth highest in the league. He averaged a 4.9 yards per carry. So James Cook had a great year last year, and he really should be recognized in this top 10. Shout out to James Cook. At number 7 was Jonathan Taylor. Number 6, Josh Jacobs. Number 5, they had Christian McCaffrey, and Christian McCaffrey really shouldn't be this high on the list. He maybe shouldn't even be on the list. He played 4 games last year and only tallied 202 yards with 4 yards per carry. So no explosive runs, only averaged around 50 rushing yards a game. He also had no touchdowns and only 146 receiving yards. He had virtually no impact in the 4 games he was on the field. And obviously the 49ers were slumping, the whole team was, so you can't punish him too bad. But when you look at it, it's just hard to put him in this top 10 with all the other guys and the people who missed the list. At number 4 was Bijan Robinson. Number 3, Jahmyr Gibbs. And when you look at how amazing all of these top 3 running backs are, it really could have gone either way with the top 3. Jahmyr Gibbs, he had 1,412 rushing yards. That's 5th in the league that year, on only 250 carries. That was 11th in the league. He also had 16 rushing touchdowns. That was tied for first with James Cook and another man who will come up later on this list. He also had 517 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. His 20 combined touchdowns gave him the most touchdowns in the NFL last year. Not to mention his 6.4 yards per touch is the highest average for any player who had more than 250 touches. So Jahmyr Gibbs, just explosive. When he has the ball in his hands, you know something is going to happen. Defenses have to wrap him up as soon as he gets the football, or else it could turn into a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, amazing. Who's at number 2? Derrick Henry. He was second in rushing yards last year, second in carries. He was tied for first in rushing touchdowns. He was the other guy with Gibbs and Cook. He had 830 yards after contact. That had tied him with Jim Brown Oh, now he is also tied with Jim Brown for the amount of games with 150 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. He has 13 games with 150 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And of course, number 1, Saquon Barkley, the Offensive Player of the Year, really could have been an MVP, but MVP is a quarterback award. They should really just call that most popular quarterback, because Saquon Barkley was doing it all last year. Had a phenomenal year. Deserves all the credit he's gotten, not only for his success, but for the boost and value of running backs. And obviously Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, all the guys on the top 10 played their part in boosting the market for running backs. But Saquon Barkley, he was at the leader of the pack in all of it. Now on to the top 10 defensive tackles. At number 10 was Cameron Hayward. Number 9, Vita Vea. Number 8, DeForest Buckner. 7, Nnamdi Madubuike. 6, Leonard Williams. He had 16 tackles for loss and a 92-yard pick six. Just a shout out for Leonard. Number 5, Quinnen Williams. Number 4, Jeffrey Simmons. He had 9 sacks and a production drop-off compared to last year, but the players and coaches still see his just raw power. This will be a common theme, as you see, that comes up later, where there might have been a production drop-off, a very steep production drop-off. However, scouts around the NFL seem to really think they have this thing called the eye test mastered, where you just see some athlete and say, man, he is the guy. You just see how he moves, you know he's the most productive person on the field. And even though there's stats to say maybe he isn't, that scouts and all leagues, they really trust their eyes way too much. That is no discredit to Jeffrey Simmons or anyone else that I mention. That is just a quick rant on scouts. Another one might come up with this number 3 ranked defensive tackle, Jalen Carter. Not great numbers, but scouts deemed him, the direct quote was, "You have to see him play to know the difference he makes." And again, a defensive tackle, defensive tackles are some of the most selfless players on the field, obviously behind offensive linemen. But defensive tackles, their assignments really aren't to make tackles. It's to eat up blocks and just wreak havoc on the interior part of the line. Just bang people up. And there's no stats for pancaking an offensive lineman or shoving them 5 yards backwards. But sometimes that's their only job, not to tackle the running back or the quarterback, or even to get a sack, just to really wear down an offensive line. But number 2 was Chris Jones, and number 1, Dexter Lawrence. For edge rushers, number 10, they had Jared Verse. And this is a hot take that really shouldn't be hot. It is that Nick Bonito was snubbed Defensive Rookie of the Year and this 10-spot ranking. Take a look at Jared Verse's stats. He had 4.5 sacks, 35 solo tackles, and 2 forced fumbles in 17 games. Nick Bonito, he had more sacks, way more sacks, 9 more, with 13.5. He had 2 less solo tackles and 2 forced fumbles and an interception. Both players played 17 games, I will add. So way more sacks, 2 off from having the same amount of tackles, same amount of forced fumbles, but Nick Bonito also had another forced turnover with an interception. So there's my hot take for Defensive Rookie in the Year and the number 10 spot on edge rushers. But number 9 is Daniel Hunter. Number 8 is Will Anderson Jr. Number 7 is Aiden Hutchinson. Now, if Aiden Hutchinson had not gotten injured, it is hard to argue. This is barring that he was half as productive on the field as he was the first 5 games he played. If he had not gotten injured and just really played mediocre the rest of the season, Hutchinson was probably going to be the number 1 ranked, and there's no doubt in my mind that Hutchinson is going to be the comeback player of the year next year. In 5 games, Aiden Hutchinson had 7.5 sacks and led the league in sacks, was ranked number 1 going into week 6 after his injury, and he stayed in the top 5 for way longer than he should have. He had the highest pass rush win percentage with a 35%, and that is 9 points higher than the next best. Aiden Hutchinson was on a heater the first 5 games. He was just tearing it up. Unfortunately, suffered a gruesome injury that had him out the rest of the season, but put your bets in now. Aiden Hutchinson is going to win Comeback Player of the Year this coming season. For edge rushers, at number 6 was Trey Hendrickson. Number 5 was Nick Bosa. 4, Max Crosby. 3, Micah Parson. 2, TJ Watt. And number 1, Myles Garrett. Now take a look at the safeties. The top 10 safeties. At number 10, Julian Love. Number 9, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Number 8, Budda Baker. 7, Antoine Winfield Jr. 6, Derwin James Jr. At number 5, they had Kirby Joseph. Now this, I don't care that I haven't even seen the other list. Kirby Joseph at number 5 is the biggest snub and misplacement in this whole ranking system. He held opposing quarterbacks to a 29.2 passer rating, led the league in interceptions last year, and in the past 3 years, he has broken up 31 passes and racked up 17 interceptions. Both of those are the most in the NFL in that 3-year span. When you take a look at his 17 interceptions in his first 3 years, the only other safety to do that is Ed Reed. Kirby Joseph is the best safety in the NFL right now. Hands down, putting him at number 5 is criminal, especially after you see who's going to be number 1. At number 4, Jesse Bates. Number 3, Xavier McKinney. He was second most in interceptions last year and now has 2 straight seasons with 11 pass breakups. He also had a 36.7% ball hawking rate. At number 2, they had Brian Branch. Brian had 4 interceptions, 16 passes defended, and a 21.1% ball hawking rate. That was the second highest in the league with 50 targets. And at number 1, they had Kyle Hamilton. The opening line of their little paragraph or essay that they wrote for Kyle Hamilton, they wrote, and quote, Hamilton gets benefit of the doubt despite having a production dip last year. And a production dip doesn't even begin to explain it. It was not a dip, it was a drop-off. Kyle Hamilton went from having double digits in pass breakups and tackles for loss to having single digits in seemingly every stat that a safety can be measured in other than tackles. It was, heavy drop-off for Kyle Hamilton. The top 10 tight ends. The big snub in the top 10 rankings for the tight ends was Jonnu Smith, hands down. He was 4th in tight end receiving yards and had 8 receiving touchdowns. He had a better season than Travis Kelce, and Kelce is in this top 10. Jonnu Smith was probably a top 5, at least top 6 tight end this year when you just look at the stats and the production, but he did not even make the top 10. He was only an honorable mention. At number 10 was David Njoku. Number 9 was Dallas Goedert. 8, Isaiah Likely. 7, TJ Hawkinson. 6, Mark Andrews. 5, Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce statistically had one of his worst seasons. There's no arguing that. But he was still number 5 in tight end receiving yards with 823. And he had 3 receiving touchdowns. Was it phenomenal? No. And was it good by Travis Kelce's standards and prior seasons? No, but it was still a productive season. At number 4, Trey McBride. 3, Sam Laporta. 2, George Kittle. And 1, the very deserving Brock Bowers. There's seemingly no dispute in this, and there shouldn't be. Brock Bowers is the first player in NFL history to be ranked number 1 at his position after his rookie season. He led the tight ends in receiving yards. He also broke the record for most receiving yards by a rookie tight end with 1,194, and most receptions by a rookie tight end with 112. Brock Bowers in his rookie year has rewritten the history books and is looking like the best tight end in the league. Onto the MLB. The Washington Nationals fire President Mike Rizzo and manager Davey Martinez. Both were members of the staff on the team when they won the World Series in 2019, but since then the Nationals have only struggled. The Nationals have not finished above 4th in the division since 2019, and this year they are currently last in their division with a 27-53 record. The rebuild wasn't working, but they're doubling down on it by firing Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez. And it seemed like there were a lot of historic moments and huge feats this week in the MLB. On Monday night, Tommy Pham homered to break the Pirates' 30 scoreless inning streak. Lawrence Butler, he is the first Oakland Athletic in 82 years to hit a leadoff inside the park home run. Pete Crow Armstrong became the 4th fastest player to reach 25 home runs and 25 stolen bases. Aaron Judge became the fastest player in MLB history to hit 350 homers. The record was formerly held by Mark McGwire, who made it to 350 home runs in 1,280 games. Judge made it in 1,088. He beat that record by nearly 200 games, 192 to be exact. And that, when you really think about that number, 192, that is over one full season. Aaron Judge made it to 350 home runs in a season's worth of games faster than everyone else. Like, I've said this earlier, but I'll say it again. If Aaron Judge were to get injured tomorrow, I think you've got to put him in the Hall of Fame. And lastly, Byron Buxton hit for the cycle on his bobblehead night, becoming the first player to hit for the cycle at Target Field since the park opened in 2010. Now finally in the UFC. First off, just an interesting stat. In 2025, 3 champions lost their belt without even fighting. That's Islam Makhachev. He moved up a weight class and vacated his belt. Ilya Topuria, he did the same thing, moving up a weight class and vacating his belt. And John Jones, who retired, and his belt went to the I'm blanking on the word. To the interim champion, Tom Aspinall. But the mid-year awards have come out. They were voted by ESPN analysts. The best event at the mid-year for the UFC was UFC 317. Topuria had the knockout victory over Oliveira in the first round. Pantoja had the submission over Kai Kara France, and Joshua Van had an upset win over Brandon Royval. UFC 317 was a phenomenal card. But that was the whole main event, and even the prelims were fun to watch. Every fight. UFC 317 is going to be very hard to top in this second half of the year. The fight of the mid-year goes to the Joshua Van Brandon Royval matchup, where Joshua Van won by decision. In the fight, a total of 419 strikes were landed. That is the most ever in a 3-round fight. The men's fighter of the year was voted to be Merab Dvalishvili. Both him and Topuria had 46.2% of the people vote for him. The major difference maker was Merab defending the title twice and giving Umar Nurmagomedov his first loss. It's looking like it's going to come right back down to Merab and Ilya in the second half of the year for the actual awards as well. It'll be an interesting race. Watch out for what those two do, not only in the next 6 months, but just for the rest of their careers. Those are two phenomenal fighters. The female fighter of the year was Kayla Harrison. There seemed to be no competition in that one. The best knockout of the year goes to Mauricio Rufy and his spinning wheel kick against King Green at UFC 313. And the best submission was John Silva's ninja choke against Bryce Mitchell at UFC 314. And a note right at the end of that, 2 fighters from the Fighting Nerds Club have the best finishes at the half-year mark. The Fighting Nerds, they are really letting it be known that they are a force to be reckoned with, and probably the best gym in the world right now. They have a ton of up-and-coming fighters just wreaking havoc in the UFC, as you can tell with the ruling for best knockout and best submission. But that is the end of this weekly sports update, or really the weekly sports rankings. Stay tuned for more rankings next week. Thanks for listening.
This episode was brought to you by yours truly, Derek Smith, with help from the voice memos and Spotify Podcasters app. For more content like this, you can continue listening to the Derek Smith Spiel on Spotify, or you can listen on my YouTube channel at Derek Smith Stock 13. There you'll find my podcast and sports betting videos on top of that. If you're a fan of my sports betting videos, you can also see highlights of those on my TikTok account. You can find that by searching at SmithStock5 again on TikTok. Enjoy collecting cards? If so, check out my Collects account at Derek Smith Stock to get deals on quality cards. For updates on everything I mentioned, follow my Instagram account. You can find that by searching Derek Smith Stock 13 on Instagram. Not interested in sports? Then go to YouTube and watch Dylan Smith Outdoors YouTube channel. Search Dylan Smith Outdoors, where there are plenty of outdoor content videos, including hunting, catching, trail cam and tree stand setup, cooking, and plenty of laughs in between. Need your lawn sprayed? Whether it's weeds or insects, Greenwood Ecologics has you covered. If you need help making your lawn greener than your neighbors, call Greenwood Ecologics at 585-739-1610. I repeat, 585-739-1610. Finally, thank you for listening to this production of the Derek Smith Spiel. Every view or listener is appreciated. I'll catch you later.